Now, as and when a drug is approved and we approach the real world scenarios, what's most important for, I think, the entire healthcare industry here is to see if there are any emerging adverse events or if there are any new safety risks. So the most important thing in predictive safety is to identify the safety signal or a new pattern of adverse events emerging early. And that is where AI truly brings in a lot of value because of the nature of how it processes the real world data. And all these components bring in together to inform the benefit risk assessment of the product itself. And starting from the clinical development to the data that we have from real world, everything comes in together to inform the benefit risk assessment, which is, I would say, the source of truth, whether the drug is actually beneficial to be given to a patient or not. And lastly, again, this is more linking to every single step that I spoke about, be it early research, be it clinical development, or in the post-market surveillance phase. The evidence generation and scientific communications is something that underlines the entire process. So by streamlining discovery, optimizing clinical trials, and leveraging real-world data, we are able to really enhance and optimize our decision-making across the asset and portfolio lifecycle. There are two other areas that I would like to touch upon. The first one is the manufacturing and supply chain. So if the US FDA has recently released a guidance on the manufacturing which is more of a discussion paper inviting feedback from the pharma counterparts to understand the manufacturing landscape, as well as where AI can fit in and bring value. So starting from manufacturing operations to characterizing the raw materials, predicting the supply chain bottlenecks, which in real world is really critical, because if a drug goes out of stock in any particular country, it's really a big issue. And so AI can really help us predict a shortage of a drug or a stockout situation across the globe, and optimize inventory along the same lines. And again, something underlying the entire process is the quality management system. So now we touched upon the discovery aspects, we touched upon the clinical development aspects, real world scenarios, and how a drug ultimately reaches the patient. What is also really important is the overall portfolio strategy for a pharmaceutical. Now, the first one that I would like to speak a little bit about is the indication selection. So for a drug that has already been approved, we have seen numerous cases where a drug can be repurposed. And for that particular idea, AI can really bring a lot of value because it can sift through a lot of disease pathways, the omics data that we have, as well as the different case reports that come up. For instance, a physician might have used and reported it in literature. AI can easily pick it up, and because typically for manual efforts, it takes really long. And again, it's not comprehensive and it's not as accurate even. So indication selection is one space where we have molecular knowledge graphs. We also have, in general, the closely linking disease pathways where everything can come in together and an indication can be highlighted. Next is the target patient population or identifying subpopulations, and this becomes really critical in disease areas such as oncology, wherein we have a lot of omics data that can help us that which patients with benefit or get the maximal benefit from this particular drug, and so on. Identifying combinations in disease areas where we see resistance coming up, be it anti-infectives, oncology, or other disease spaces. And lastly, I would like to touch upon optimizing the endpoints. Again, that I already spoke about. For instance, if we have imaging endpoints which are linked to response rates in oncology, and then linking it to the actual endpoint. So in general, the indication, patient, combinations used, and the endpoints used largely form a part of the portfolio strategy for a particular disease area that the industry is working on. And AI can simply really be helpful in cost savings and drive faster, at pace, at scale, and more informed decision-making across the entire pharmaceutical value chain. So by processing large data sets, multi-omics that I already spoke about, detecting patterns as we discussed about in the space of adverse events, safety, and generating predictions, which could be in numerous ways, starting from discovery to development to real world. Researchers can uncover critical insights and optimize the decision making, and that is where AI brings in a lot of value, along with the operational and efficiencies that are underlined throughout the pharmaceutical value chain. With that, I'll now like to close my presentation with this last slide. And as we embed AI across the drug development processes, it is extremely essential to have a continuous dialogue with the regulators, and the industry is learning with everyone else, along with the regulators and along with the academia, and it's really important to highlight that collaboration and working together for the patients. Also, there are various HA recommendations that were also presented earlier, and for example, the EU Act AI, and those are very good resources to understand in terms of what the standpoint of the regulators are at this point in time. Secondly, as a pharmaceutical company or an academic institution, it's really important to have a focused data strategy. The idea is to collect data which is relevant, which is absolutely essential. So having that focused data strategy and not collecting data that we are eventually not going to use is, again, a key aspect from a sustainability standpoint as well, and reducing the carbon footprint. Again, governance around AI use. So for each of the organizations, it is recommended to have a very strong structure of governance to make sure that the use cases that are being implemented in different, I would say, line functions or departments across the institution are also regulated within the organizational landscape, even before it comes out for the wider public consumption. And use of technology to build scalable products, because there's a term, very interesting term that I came across, that is the AI paradox. So what's happening right now is that AI has already started helping us significantly in not just the individual productivity, but so these are basically the horizontal use cases wherein AI is helping us in everyone in individual productivity across organizations by using tools such as Copilot. But what is really important is to highlight the vertical use cases, for instance, in a regulatory function or in a clinical function or the discovery function, and then linking them all together. So with that, the key important point also is to develop the future-ready talent base and capabilities. And ultimately, this is what we all endeavor for, is to have enhanced patient experience, even when they are part of the clinical trials, or then when they are consuming the drugs that we are all building together. So with that, I'll end my presentation, and yeah, thank you so much for listening.